It is through memory that children first learn how to interact with and make sense of their surroundings. And as we grow, our personalities and the choices we make become increasingly defined by the knowledge and experience we carry with us. And this does not just happen at an individual level. Memory is also integral to building strong relationships and communities, as the recollection and retelling of shared experiences builds common ground and enduring ties between individuals. Then there is how we engage with our memory, which is nothing like retrieving a written report from a filing cabinet. When we remember the first rose of spring, we can see its colors. When we remember that especially lavish birthday meal, we can taste it all over again. And our heart still skips a beat when we remember that first touch and moment of real recognition from the one we love. Far from being an inactive and neutral record of our past, our memory is a highly charged space we continue to inhabit, one that informs our response to the present and so holds great implications for who we will become in the future. Our ancestors grasped this far better than we do, which is why they sought to invoke the power of memory in their most formative social and religious rituals. Be it the quest for personal enlightenment or the collective destiny of a community, they understood that mere words cannot get under the skin of people if they don't already resonate with and give voice to their deeper convictions. If new information, a new way of thinking, was to become part of someone's identity, then it had to tap into this underlying intuitive level of existence. And the proven way of doing this was through rites and ceremonies which drew their participants into the story of the new reality now being offered. Often, these stories took the form of a foundation narrative, whether of an ethnic or national group or of a religious sect. And, memory being what it is, a dramatic retelling of the story not only preserved its form and content for successive generations, but even conveyed the impact and experience of those critical events as if they were happening for the very first time. Participants in these rituals were not simply watching history played back for their learning and instruction. They had themselves become the characters of the drama, taking their place in a collective memory from which flowed a fresh sense of belonging and purpose. Herein lies the significance of the perpetual ordinance that God laid down for Moses and the Israelites at that first Passover. The celebration of Passover has always been fundamental to Jewish faith and identity, not only because it preserves the story of Israel's miraculous passage from slavery to freedom, but because, by its ritual actions, it situates its participants in that story and invokes fresh feelings of wonder and gratitude for the mighty acts of a loving and faithful God. The current form of the Seder meal celebrated at Passover may be a much later development, from how the festival was kept in ancient Israel. But the detail given in tonight's reading from Exodus provides its own clues as to those early observances. Of the whole assembly coming together to slaughter the sacrificial lambs, then returning to their households to daub the blood on the doorposts and consume the carcass hurriedly, dressed not for a meal, but as if ready to depart on a journey, as those first Israelites did as they prepared to flee Egypt. It is one thing to be told that God has set you free. It is another thing entirely to experience that liberation for yourself. And so it is for our Christian Passover, the Paschal Triduum, which begins with this Maundy Thursday Eucharist. The ceremonies we perform tonight and over the coming days are unlike anything else in the Church's calendar and are of particularly ancient origin, acting together on our imagination to propel us into the middle of the unfolding drama of Christ's passion and death. So, after this sermon, I shall perform the washing of the feet, a rite even more jarring today in its intimacy and vulnerability than when Peter stubbornly resisted Christ's humble act of loving service. Then, following our Eucharist, we shall walk with our Lord to Gethsemane and watch with him a while as the apostles did, already anticipating and mourning their human weakness and broken promises to follow Jesus to the end. Tomorrow, in the strange, stark light of a church stripped bare, we shall gather at the foot of the cross to hear the story of divine love told once more and pray for the good of all God's children, as Jesus did with his dying breaths. Holy Saturday is the day when the universe pauses while the Lord lies in the tomb, until the unconstrainable spark of his life sets the darkness ablaze, and we meet Christ on the far shore as a holy people delivered by his hand from the bondage of sin and death. It is the experience of the journey of these next 3 days, the journey from darkness to light, from desolation to triumph, from doubt and denial to relationship restored, which unites us with those first followers of Jesus Christ and all the generations of believers who have come after. We are the resurrection people, the lost sheep who have been found by the grace of God and called to unity in the body of the one whose body was broken for the life of all. And so, it is particularly fitting that the Triduum should begin on the night of the Last Supper, or rather, that Christ should institute the Eucharist as the precursor to all that was about to befall him. We call the Eucharist the memorial of Christ's passion, while Paul declared in tonight's epistle that as often as we celebrate the sacrament, we proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. By now, you should understand